All right, on today's episode of the Fit and Healthy Denver podcast, we have Damon Gillette, who is the head tennis pro at the Denver Tennis Club. Welcome, Damon.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thanks, Jamie.
And we're going to be talking about all things tennis, tennis performance, tennis injuries, tennis injury avoidance, hopefully, and how to play your best. And so I wanted to have Damon on today as an expert in the field and just kind of talk about a lot of different things that people have questions about. So before we do that, Damon, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, Jamie. So once again, thanks for having me on the show here. So I am a Denver native. I've grown up here, kind of grew up in the Highlands area, and started playing at the Denver Tennis Club when I was a young kid. Just played some tournaments around town. And as I got older, after high school, I jumped out onto the tour. Tried to go pro for many years and didn't work out the way I had, imagined it would. So I started teaching and landed a good head pro position here at the Denver Tennis Club. And I've been here for about 8 years now. And it's been amazing. Wonderful people that I work with. And I get to be on a tennis court every day. So there's definitely some worse things to be doing. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
for a tennis player, I can't imagine there's not a much better job. So, and you coach mostly adults, correct?
Mostly adults, yeah. Mostly adults from beginner levels to open levels, and all ages in between as well. Probably more so 21 to 80. And so that's what I love about tennis is it really is a sport of a lifetime. And we get a lot of people out in their mid 80s playing and running quick, running down balls, and it's just impressive and inspiring. So it's definitely a great sport to pick up, and it's a fun sport to teach our kids so that they have it for longevity throughout their lives.
Right, and help play to keep yourself young, right?
Definitely,
Yeah,
definitely. Be
it's
mobile,
great.
that's for sure.
Yeah, it's great to see those older adults that are out there, playing games every day. And we're by the Gates Tennis Center where our clinic is, and we see older adults kind of walking by our clinic with their tennis rackets in their bag every day. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love it. It's you have those older adults who sit on the couch and watch Bonanza or whatever, and then you have your older adults who go play tennis every day. And I think the quality of life, I'm guessing, is considerably improved, and not only from a physical aspect, but from a social aspect as well, playing with their friends and things like that.
Jamie, you're absolutely right. Not only does this sport keep you young, but the network and the social aspect that you end up experiencing is it's a bond that tennis players have, and it's a bond that you have wherever you go. A lot of times people move here from out of state. They come visit the tennis clubs first to see what it is because it's such a big part of their lives. And
Sure.
that's just the way the tennis family is. And so I used to actually be over at Gates before I got the gig here. And Gates just had such a great volume of people to where they had great energy, all ages. And, people would come together, play. You meet so many friends through being on the court, then you go out for drinks or for dinner or whatever it may be. And I tell you, the social aspect of tennis is almost maybe even more important than the healthy aspect. I know that's hard to imagine, but it's the emotional health as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And speaking of emotional and physical health, you told me you were recently injured. Tell us a little bit about that and what did you learn from that?
You know, I'm 36 years old. I've been competitive my entire life. And so naturally, the players that I work with here at the club are players that love to compete at their respected levels. And I feel like for me, I do a better job of coaching them if I'm able to stay, in the trenches, if I can keep it fresh for myself, because a lot of the things that, my level ends up feeling in a tournament with nerves, emotions, tactics, it's the same thing that a lot of the other players feel as well. It's just at different levels. So if I can keep it fresh for myself, I feel like I'm a better pro for the players that I work with. And so during the Denver City Open, which was in mid-June, our club actually hosts that tournament. I did some training for the tournament, probably not as much as I should have. And I ended up playing a lot of tennis in a short amount of time. I ended up playing about 15 sets in 3 days, and my body couldn't take it. I felt great. I was in the semifinals of the men's open singles, and we were at 1-1 in the first set, 15 love, and I go to hit a serve and volley, and my explosion going forward after my serve, I had a pop in my left calf,
Hmm.
and I instantly knew I'm done. The semifinals of a tournament that I've been wanting to win for so long,
Yeah.
I'm injured. I'm not going to be able to do it. I couldn't even walk. And so, for me, going through an injury, it keeps it fresh for me on what so many of our players in our community have to go through. And it really does make you take a look at, okay, well, what type of preventative things did I end up doing? I didn't do many. I did some footwork drills. I did the usual things, but now that I'm getting a little bit older, you really got to take care of your body a whole lot more to be able to give yourself those opportunities to be able to compete, and especially at the level that you like.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good aspect as an athlete. What did you learn from this injury as a coach?
Um, I learned on how important of a role that a coach can have in the preventative injury side as well, and not just on court tactics, right? I mean, our job as a coach is to definitely train and improve technique, improve the mental side of tennis, improve the strategies that you can use. But now, it refreshes my memory of, hey, you got to take care of your body as well. You better be doing your stretching. You better have your routines and stay disciplined with your routines, because I definitely wasn't. I was out here with my players weeks leading into the tournament, helping them with their games, practicing for myself when I was, when I had time to, and definitely didn't do the things that I needed to be able to play at that level. And so I think our job as coaches, we definitely have to guide our players in the right direction as much as we can, which can be difficult to do. We have to end up wearing a lot of hats out there, but that, once again, that's why I love to compete, because it refreshes my memory on, hey, these are what players go through. And
Mm-hmm.
if I can end up giving them an edge in these certain areas, then hey, all the better for my players.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you kind of touched on something there where you're kind of like talking about, you're doing all these stretching drills and other drills, but kind of like time almost got away from you a little bit. And I think that's everybody's problem, right? Like they would do all these other things if they had the time. So keeping that in mind, how does somebody prioritize to train for injury prevention?
You know, I think you got to take a look, and you got to make some goals for yourself. And if something is truly important to you, you're going to make the time. And so for me, I'll just share my goal. We have the Colorado State Open coming up mid-September. It starts September 17th over at Gates. And so we have about 6 weeks to that. And so I'm training a bunch of my players to play in that tournament. I'm doing the same things. And so I'm putting a goal on the calendar, and I'm doing things every day to try, and because I've been injured, I really want to take good care of my body. And so I am waking up in the mornings and having my 15 or 20-minute stretch routine. I am getting my workouts in every other day over at GW on the soccer field or on the football field, and then doing a stretch after that, and then I am doing a stretch before bedtime. And so being able to stay disciplined on these things is what's going to help me achieve the goal of having some fun and competing there at the tournament. And I'm helping my players to do the same thing.
Yeah. And well, let me ask it this way. How is training different for injury prevention versus for performance?
I think, for injury prevention, whenever you start your workout, you definitely want to end up you want to warm up your body the right way. I think all of us can end up having a very good, intense workout. All of us can end up playing a very intense tennis match and being just fine. I think where the preventative stuff comes into play is, what do you do before that workout? What do you do before that tennis match? What do you do after that tennis match or after that workout? To me, I think that's where the preventative stuff comes into play. Obviously, if you can get out and get in, massages. I bought a Theragun to help kind of lengthen my muscles and keep everything nice and loose. Unfortunately, it is more of a full-time job. It takes a lot of time and
Yeah.
effort. And like you said, you bring up a good point. Not everyone has the time to do it. And
Mhm.
so I think even if you're able to adopt some of these tactics to help you prevent your injury, even if you end up getting a handful of these things and implementing these things, I think it's going to make it better for your performance and for your
Yeah.
longevity.
Yeah. That is something that we run into all the time, not only with our tennis players, but with any of our athletic people that we're working with. And like with rehab exercises, they're not always the sexiest exercise, right? We try to make it sexy, but sometimes some of them are a little boring. And we have to remind people like, this is going to, like, don't think of it as rehab exercise. Think about it as something that's going to help your performance. Like this mobility drill is going to help you run down the line and hit that backhand that you may not be able to do otherwise. And so I think with a lot of these things, especially like the injury prevention work or the mobility work, it's like, think of it as a training aspect, not as a rehab drill or a mobility drill. It's all kind of part of the same thing. It's just hitting a different aspect of performance. And so when we've done it that way, you get a lot more buy-in, or we do. And I think it just helps tie everything together a little bit.
And unfortunately, I think people have to learn for themselves. And look at me I'm a very good prime example. I know a lot of these things, but I still wasn't staying disciplined with the injury prevention things that I should have been doing. It took an injury for me to fully understand and comprehend, hey, you better do these boring things. You better do these things that are not sexy, because when you're on the court, that's where you're going to get your benefit.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm all for. It's the little things that you do every day that are not the fun things. It's just like practicing your serve. You go out and it's boring to practice your serve, but if you do practice your serve, you go out to that match, you're going to feel so much more confident that you did it in that moment. Right. But if you didn't practice your serve and then you hit that moment, you don't feel the confidence. And it's the same thing with the body, especially after having that injury. I want to feel confident to be able to make that move out to that ball or to that drop shot, and having a very good stretch routine, having a very good, yoga routine, I think helps out tremendously. There's a handful of things that I think work, but I think it's important for individuals to find that routine that works for them, that they have confidence in.
Mm-hmm. And once you are injured, obviously there's a time where you're injured, but you're not necessarily playing full yet. But it doesn't mean you have to be off the court, right? So what do you need to do to keep playing while you're also injured?
That's a great question. That's a very good question. What the thing that I recommend to all of my players, and I am actually in this boat as we speak because of my injury, coming off of my injury, is once the ball is actually in play, whether you're doing a lesson, whether you're doing a drill, or you're just practicing with a friend, once the ball is in play, a lot of times our instincts just kick in and we want to run after that ball. And so we get excited, maybe we get competitive, and we want to have that quick burst of speed. And that's where if that injury is not 100%, that's how you get re-injured.
Yeah.
So the thing that I like to recommend is, I'm a big firm believer in shadow tennis. And so that's where you grab your racket and you just shadow out 10 forehands, shadow out 10 backhands, do the exact movement, really visualize that the ball is coming at you. And when you do those movements, you're doing the same movements that you would be doing on the court, but you're in full control of these things because there is no ball in play. So that's a great way to end up testing that injury. So in my case, it was the calf, but it could be the hamstring, it could be the thigh, it could be the quad, it could be a variety of different things. So you get the confidence, you gain the confidence off the court by mimicking these same movements, and then you have the control of how aggressive do you want to do this, how intense do you want to be. And so I did that for my first workouts, where I did twice last week, and I felt really good. And so I jumped on the court today for the first time, felt pretty good, hit for a couple hours. And so doing those workouts helped to give me confidence when I'm on the court. And so just because I've done it for 2 times doesn't mean I'm going to stop doing it, because it's also part of the injury prevention.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of time to go back to the basics, right? Like, and
Totally.
this is something, how can you perfect your serve just a little bit better, right? How can you hit just a little bit closer to the corners? Like, perfect those basics while you are taking that time. And then when you do recover, you're now slightly better at the basics and your overall game is better. One other thing that we often suggest is, like, when you're going back, like, you're not ready to play at the same level, play somebody a couple levels down from you. So it's kind of easy, if you will, and get that, so that you get the social aspect. You get out there, you get your heart pumping a little bit, but you're not out there full tilt at the same time.
I totally agree. Unfortunately, a lot of egos will come into
Yeah.
play with that,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, okay, well, if I'm playing Jamie and Jamie's, a 3.5, but I'm a 4.0, but I lose to Jamie, it's like the whole ego thing of that. But it drives me crazy. But it is part of a reality. But I agree with you 110%. You got to be able to play and use the lower level to help gain that confidence. That's why a lot of times you'll see some of the pros drop down to the challenger level to kind of get some more matches under their belt, so that it helps to propel them at the
Sure.
higher levels.
Yeah.
And so no, I definitely agree with you on that.
One thing I want to talk about, because I know it's one of the most common injuries in tennis, tennis elbow. So you and I both know that tennis elbow is not necessarily caused by the elbow. There are lots of different things that can cause tennis elbow. Why don't you tell some of our listeners just some of the variety of things that can be involved in causing tennis elbow?
I think I'll give you three things. Number one is definitely improper technique. I
Mhm.
think improper technique is probably the biggest culprit for tennis elbow, in my opinion and in my experiences. And one of the big reasons for improper technique, one of the big things that I look for all the time is, where is that player making contact with the ball? If they're making contact behind their body and they're trying to hit a forehand, that shock is going to go directly to the elbow over and over and over and over. And it doesn't take long to end up getting tennis elbow, because that elbow keeps getting aggravated because the ball is being hit late over and over and over again. And so the big thing that I try to have my players do is, you want to make that contact out in front. This way there's a lot more leverage. And letting the racket do the work. It's a lot more effortless when you keep the ball out in front of you. It's funny, even as I'm explaining this, I'm like shadowing the movement because I'm so in tune with doing that and showing the players.
Yeah.
But improper technique, make contact, guys. Make contact in the general. You want to have the right contact point on forehands, backhands. Serves is a big one. Keep the ball out in front of you. When it jams up the body, the elbows come in, all the shock goes right to the elbow. The second thing that I would say is equipment. I think a lot of times the equipment that people are using can end up aggravating the arm. For me personally, I use a soft polyester string, and I string mine really loose. I string it at 38 pounds, which is crazy to a lot of people. It's crazy to me, but I like it. But if I strung that poly string around 45 or 48 pounds, if I were to go up 7 to 10 pounds, I think my elbow would end up feeling it. And
Mhm.
I'm making contact out in front, but that would be more of an equipment check.
Sure.
Okay. And definitely a tension check that you want to end up having. So I don't recommend that type of string for a whole lot of, for a whole lot of club players, especially the beginner players. If they do, I recommend going with the lower string. The big thing that I try to recommend for players that have the tennis elbow or are starting to feel a little tennis elbow. Unfortunately, my wife is going through that and experiencing that right now, and that's very unpleasant. Oh man, I just lost my train of thought. So I think about my wife and I just lose all thought. Oh yeah, but I have the players switch out their string. I automatically go to the natural gut, and it's the softest string that there is. Yes, we want to make sure that the ball is out in front, but if you're feeling any type of elbow pain, or if you're just coming back from tennis elbow, get into natural gut. It is the softest string, and it absorbs a lot more of the shock than any other string. Unfortunately, it's the most expensive, but once you've gone through tennis elbow, it's well worth it. It's well worth it.
Okay, so
So
we had technique, we had how tightly the string is strung pressure wise, and
yep,
then
and
going with
type of string,
and then
yeah,
the type of string as well. Okay, that's great. Thanks for those.
yeah. One
Um,
more. Let me give you one more.
yeah,
Jamie. When you get into competition, everybody gets tight. And a lot of times you start to squeeze that racket a little too tight. So a lot of times, because you're nervous, you're tight, you squeeze tighter. Maybe the ball gets a little closer to you, but that tightness of the hand, especially on the ground strokes, a lot of that shock goes right to the elbow as well. So you want to do what you can to be loose whenever you loosen up the fingers around the grip, naturally the entire arm becomes loose. So that's
Got to avoid that ninja death grip for sure.
exactly
Um,
exactly.
is there any to avoid that? Is there any way that they know they're gripping too tight? Like I know sometimes like if you're gripping real hard, your nails will blanch white. Any quick tips like that that you know of, or is it just more you'll feel it?
That's the thing that we look for. Are your fingertips really white? But also at the same time, people start to feel it if they're squeezing too
Yeah.
tight. I always see players like shaking out their hand and
Ah,
they feel the tightness, and when you feel that tightness over time, it's just going to end up affecting that elbow. So you want to do what you can to keep that hand loose, obviously not super loose to where the racket flies out of your hand, but loose enough to where you're going to be nice and relaxed hitting through that ball.
all right, perfect. Well, Damon, I want to respect your time. So I got one more question for you, and then we'll kind of wrap up. After injury, and you've recovered from injury, what are some things that you need to be aware of when playing tennis?
I think if you still have, is this post apprehension?
Yeah, so somebody's had an injury.
Yep.
They've come back, no longer having any pain, but they're getting back. What are some things they should be aware of, either about how their performance may have changed, or once you have one injury, you're more likely to get another? Apprehension for sure. Anything like that that you've seen as a coach?
I think the thing that I've seen is, ease back into it, right? Ease back into it. If people have had an injury, they're coming back, they're feeling good, they don't feel any pain. You want to ease back into it, but at the same time, I'm a big believer in that shadow tennis stuff. If
Mm-hmm.
you can control your movements off the court without a ball and really push yourself and test yourself, I think that's going to give you the green light when you're on the court. And I think that's what's really, really going to end up bringing the confidence. And if for some reason, if that injury was pretty drastic to where, I don't know, maybe you have a knee replacement, these are just things that unfortunately are a part of sports.
Sure.
And injuries are a part of sports, and it's the price that we pay as athletes to be out on the court, be out on the football field, be out on the basketball court, to do the things that we love to do. And hopefully people can end up having maybe just a small injury to where they learn from it more, to start taking a little bit more caution and focusing more on the preventative injury, because I really do think that is the stuff that helps out the most. Obviously, you just want to be as well prepared as possible, because obviously accidents happen. But if you can go into a match knowing that, hey, I was injured, I rehabbed myself, I did all the necessary PT, I did all the necessary massages, I did all the necessary stretching, yoga, I did it all. You can go out there on the court and lay it all out there and feel confident to do it, right? But it's that apprehension that ends up a lot of times when you're afraid to get hurt. A lot of times that's when it happens, because you're a
Yeah.
little tight, right? You're a
Yep.
little
Yep.
tight.
Exactly.
Thing body tightens up, and so make sure that you're confident and that you believe in all of the off court work that you've done, so that you're ready for your event.
Yeah, and working with somebody like yourself, obviously that helps give people confidence because they know they've done the right things to get back. You've given them the right drills. You've checked them off that they're ready to go back. So I think that's where you come in as a nice confident, I don't say confidence booster, but you are that person that was going to give them the confidence and help them through your coaching.
The pros around town, we really do help our players to feel more comfortable. We're exposed to a lot of times, 30, 40 people a day, depending on, what drills you're doing. And so
Mhm.
that's a lot of relationships that you build. And a lot of people end up getting injured, and you help them through that based on the experiences that I've had. And I'm not the only pro that has had those experiences. And that's why it's nice to have your pro. It's nice to have that bond with your pro, so that they can help you through those tough times of rehabbing and getting back to it. And well, like I said, we're there to remind people that it is a part of sports and they will be back, but hey, you better do the right things to make sure that it doesn't happen again, and fully be prepared by taking good care of your body.
Awesome. All right. Well, we've already run a little bit over. I know you've got to go play and coach here real soon. So, Damon, if people want to kind of learn a little bit more from you or contact you, how can they get in touch with you?
They can, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, they could email me, my email is damon@denvertennisclub.com. It's pretty easy. If anyone has any questions about anything, I'm happy to shed some experience and share my experiences and help out any way that I can. And if for some reason I can't, I should know a few people to point them in the right direction.
All right, perfect. Well, Damon, I just want to say thank you. And anybody who's out there, look for Damon. He's going to be in our Fit and Healthy Facebook group, and he can answer any tennis-specific questions there. Thanks for coming on today, Damon, and everybody. Thanks for listening. And happy tennis, everybody. All right, talk to you later. Bye.
Thanks.